A road work alert, and we take a look at the capital improvement plan for fiscal 2014 on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Wednesday, March 27th, 2013. I'm Sarah Colvin. Road work begins today on Corporation Street and Enterprise Road in Hyannis. Crews will be out performing drainage work along those roadways. Drivers are asked to seek alternate routes through the construction areas if possible. There might be periodic delays, intermittent detours, and travel restrictions during that work period. Again, drainage work begins today in Hyannis in the area of Corporation Street and Enterprise Road. Stay up to date with work projects online at town.barnstable.ma.us. On April 4th, Town Council will open public hearings on the capital improvement plan for FY14, projects for the Water Supply Enterprise Fund, the Sewer Enterprise Fund, Airport Enterprise Fund, and plans to revamp school and town buildings, as well as lots of road repairs all make the list. Barnstable Director of Finance Mark Milne talked to us about this year's plan, which he says is the largest we've seen in some time.
Actually, we have a pretty large capital improvement plan this year. There's a total of 54 projects that are up for approval next week, and they're included within 34, I think about 34 separate appropriation orders that the council will be dealing with. So we have several enterprise fund appropriations totaling almost $13.5 million, and then we have multiple general fund appropriations that total about $9.3 million. So it's over a $22 million capital program altogether, one of the largest ones we've had in quite some time. It includes, in the general fund, it includes about $3.7 million for various roadways projects, sidewalks, guardrails, road improvements, things like that. Over about $4 million for municipal and school facilities, multiple improvements to multiple buildings. And then there's several projects for the airport, which will be contingent upon them receiving federal grant awards in order to move forward with those projects. If they don't receive those federal grant awards, we won't move forward with the project.
Indeed. So Marco, what is the reason for the capital plan being so large this year as compared to last year's? Is it a need? Is it that we've got funds to support it, or is it a combination of those things and more?
Yeah, it's a combination of those things. Our needs have been well documented over the past few years. We had close to $200 million worth of needs requested over the next 5 years. About half of that general fund, half of that enterprise fund. So there's a great deal of need out there. We also did the $7 million transfer last week from the general fund reserves into the capital trust fund. It's going to allow us to expand a borrowing program over the next few years for the general fund. And so a combination of those things has resulted in a much more aggressive capital program for us. And with the borrowing market still where it is today, with some of the lowest interest rates we've ever seen since like the 1950s, it really makes it's a good time for us to go out and borrow money to do capital improvements, because the rates will only go up from here. So, before there's too much of a spike in interest rates, which could happen over the next few years with changes that are going on with the federal government, we should get into that market sooner rather than later if we want to try to do as much capital as we can. So we're trying to find ways to do that.
Absolutely, and especially, as you said, with the rates being so low and really those record low rates, you certainly want to get in on that before they start to go up. It's definitely a good time to, as you say, to borrow money and make sure those rates stay low. Save us some bucks in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. The less money we have to pay for interest, the more we can apply towards principal or capital, and that's the strategy. Is definitely keep the borrowing costs the lowest you possibly can. So this program does include about almost $12 million of borrowing authorizations for the various enterprise funds, and about $5.6 million in borrowing authorizations for various general fund projects. So, it's about a $16 million altogether in borrowing authorization. But again, the ones particularly for the airport, which is about $9.5 million in borrowing authorizations, we won't actually do those borrowing authorizations unless federal grant awards are received. And if those federal grant awards are received, we won't even have to do the borrowing because the federal grant will pay for the project. But the borrowing authorization has to be done initially in order to apply for the federal grant.
Mark, talk to me a little bit about the process. How do these capital improvement orders kind of go from ideas of our various departments and enterprise accounts, et cetera, to making it on the agenda for discussion by town council?
Well, every department quantifies what their need is, based on their programs, and we have a process that requires them to fill out a capital project justification request, which includes a multitude of items, asking them for the time frame, description of the project, justification of the project, the funding source, any offsets that they to those project expenditures that they may have identified, and then subsequently any operating costs. If there are operating costs associated with doing the capital project that are going to come after the project's done, or if there's operating savings that will occur after the project's completed, we ask them to identify that. Then all those requests go to a task force made up of various town staff who evaluate the project based against 10 different criteria that we use. They score them. The same projects are given to the Comprehensive Financial Advisory Committee, uses the same criteria. They score them, and then we bring those scores together, compare them, and the town manager evaluates those and then makes his recommendation as to which projects he deems necessary to go forward before the council. So, and it's interesting to note that most of the projects recommended by the Comprehensive Financial Advisory Committee are included in the town manager's recommendations, with the exception, I think, of 2. So almost every single project that they recommended, the town manager is also bringing forward for recommendation.
Certainly. So certainly not a short process by any stretch. And again, we're still not at the end of the road because they are, of course, all of these orders are up for public hearing on April 4th. Are there any particular projects that you'd like to highlight? Anything that kind of sticks out in this year's capital plan?
Well, the continued commitment to the public road improvements program of $3.25 million will continue. It's been several years now that we've actually had that appropriation, and I think the people have seen the results of that program driving around town and some of the public roadways. There've been a lot of public roadway improvements over the past several years. So that program, I think, has worked very successfully for the town. But then there are multiple improvements being recommended to various municipal and school facilities. There's about a dozen different facilities that are going to be touched with these appropriations, including the Marine Environmental Affairs building, the police station, the interior of Town Hall, the Structures and Grounds Operations building, the Austerville Community Center, West Barnstable Community Center, a roof and trim out at the grade 4-5 school, the Barnstable Intermediate School facade and roof as far as an evaluation is before the construction. So there's so many different facilities that are going to be addressed with this capital program that there's going to be a lot of activity going on for the next several months if these are approved.
Town Council meets next on Thursday, April 4th. Public hearings for the capital improvement plan will begin that night. Tonight, the Zoning Board of Appeals will meet at Town Hall. On the agenda, a Hyannis convenience store continues its quest to have a beer and wine selection. Omarsh Corporation, who runs the AM/PM store on Bursa's Way, will be before the board tonight. The sale of alcoholic beverages isn't allowed under the current zoning. Omarsh also must first receive a license from the licensing authority. Tonight, the ZBA will also talk about expansion plans for a Barnstable Village coffee shop and a subdivision of land. The ZBA meets tonight at 7. in the second floor hearing room at Town Hall. With Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Colvin.